What is this?
Atom bomb.
All right, Patrick, let's talk about some of the listeners' reactions, theories, and so on to the Pluribus Season 1 finale. Now, I do want to say that in the wake of the Season 1 finale, Vince Gilligan and the whole creative team has been giving a lot of interviews to various outlets, Variety, Alan Sepinwall, so forth. And so there's a lot of their insights that I'm going to bring up during this conversation. And just I would love to hear your reaction to some of that stuff. And then, of course, we have a bunch of listeners that have written in with some cool ideas and theories as well. So yeah, let's get into it. And I do just want to say before we begin, thanks again to everyone who's written in to decodingtv@gmail.com or commented at youtube.com/decodingtv. Big thanks to Matt Goldberg, who's done a great job writing recaps at decodingtv.com for every episode. A lot of great insights there. So it's just been a wonderful experience to discuss, cover the show with you, Patrick Klepek. And I look forward to covering many shows in the future in 2026 with y'all as well. I wanted to start by reading some of the reactions that people had, specifically Jesse Earl, aka Jesse Gender, who has been a frequent co-host on this podcast. I did not get her permission to read her posts at Blue Sky. So too bad, Jesse. Exposing your thoughts to the wider public without your knowledge, but she's just so insightful on this that I wanted to get it out there.
We're finally giving Jessie a platform. I think she should be excited about that.
She should be. I hope to get the check in the mail, Jesse. Anyway, okay. So Jesse Gender wrote over at jessegender.bluesky.social, reacting to the Pluribus season finale. And again, this is a spoil. We're spoiling everything in Pluribus season 1. Man, that opening scene's ending was absolutely horrifying. Just watching a whole culture be packed up and put away, subsumed into the hegemony. And that girl being emotionally manipulated by the Hive to join them, play acting her town for her. It's so colonial coded. It actually tore me apart watching that whole scene because I knew exactly how it was going to end, with that town abandoned. And it was just so emotionally devastating to watch. And to know this is what colonialism and projects of cultural genocide tried to do in real life hurts, end quote. Anyway, I just thought that was really insightful. Jesse's not the only person to bring up the colonial parallels of Pluribus, but I thought that was just like a great lens through which to interpret that opening scene of like one of the projects like endpoints of colonialism is the elimination of culture, right? The subsuming of one culture to another, and seeing it in such vivid fashion is very evocative, very provocative. Patrick Klepek, any thoughts on that?
No, yeah. I mean, it seemed very, Vince has talked about, Gilligan has talked in many interviews where people have kind of ribbed him about like, wow, you really got a big check on this one. And he's like, yeah, we pretty much got to do almost everything we wanted on this show. And so to set that scene there with these people, with this cult, like it's specific, like it is, I think, a scene meant to be read into very pointedly. And I think Jesse does a great job of illustrating what is so chilling about that scene, and its broader implications for like what like we as a society, as a culture, as a planet have done over and over. And we sometimes put a nice spin on it, calling it cultural assimilation, like become a melting pot, and sometimes you're just melted into the pot, which is what the others do on Pluribus. And it's chilling to see so localized, because often when this happens, it happens with it's spread out over, millions of people. Like it's difficult to figure out like what have you held on to that's your own and what have you contributed to sort of a broader group of people, a broader culture. And here, when you have this sort of indigenous group, a really small selection of people, you can see how that can be snuffed out in the most cynical way possible, which is something that humanity has done on purpose, and here is done on purpose just for a different reason.
On that note, we did get this email from Bill F. from Joplin, Missouri, writing into decodingtv@gmail.com about that opening scene, saying, I just want to express my admiration for how Vince Gilligan and Pluribus went above and beyond in the finale with the use of language of the opening scene. The entire sequence with Kusamayo is performed in Quechua, which was the language of the Incas and is still the most widely spoken Native American language with over 20 million speakers in the Andean region. Still, though, it would have been a lot easier for them to have the scene in Spanish. nobody would have batted an eye since Peru is considered a Spanish-speaking country. There are definitely orders of magnitude more actors to find that can perform in Spanish than Quechua, but Gilligan and his team took the more challenging and more interesting path, and it resulted in what has got to be what has got to be one of the most widely seen uses of Quechua on TV. It's emblematic of how Pluribus consistently chooses the more challenging, more expensive, more interesting way to portray all its plot developments, end quote. I don't know if you saw, there was a viral video of the girl that plays Kusamayu, or the woman that plays Kusamayu, watching the sequence on TV as it aired, and it's wonderful. It's a very moving experience to see, language that is not spoken by that many people, like, represented on a global stage in this way. So props for all that. Now, having said all that, a lot of people did have strong reactions to some of Gilligan's comments about the opening scene and things of that nature.
Uh-oh.
Vince Gilligan has given interviews to Variety.com, and also Alan Sepinwall will be reading passages from some of those during the course of this conversation. But Vince Gilligan, talking about that opening scene, said the perfect reaction to the show, Vince Gilligan, the creator of the show, this is not me, okay? The perfect reaction to the show is for the viewer to decide for themselves, is this paradise or is this hell? You could watch, for instance, the way the others walk away from that Peruvian village and say, oh my God, that is a nightmare. Suddenly everybody is cold to one another. But if you look really closely, they're not actually cold to each other. They're just there. It's like all the cells in my body. I'm not paying attention to each one, but they make up one whole organism. They are happy, I think. But then again, is that paradise or is it hell? End quote. Anyway, I think that's just an interesting insight, because most people look at that opening scene and they're horrified. They're horrified at this hive, this joining, the complete vanishing of all cultural markers, the whole play acting that everyone was doing for Kusamayo. They're just trying to fool her to absorb her personality. They're horrified. Me, on the other hand, I see things from the way Vince Gilligan wanted me to see them, which is, hey, on the one hand, yes, that is very upsetting. On the other hand, the Hive's just doing its thing, man. I mean, I think I've had more sympathy for the Hive throughout this whole show than you have, Patrick. You've always been anti-Hive from the beginning.
Yeah, I think
right?
a reasonable position. I don't think that's one I have to defend. I think yours is the one that has to mount a defense and an explanation.
But I just want it to be known, Vince Gilligan himself, the master of TV storytelling, has said, hey, is this paradise or is this hell? You decide. And, I'm not saying I think it's paradise. I'm not saying like I definitively think that. I'm just saying, for them, we don't know. Maybe for them it's awesome.
I have done my best to be off any form of social media and discourse talk. Like, if people gotten deeply irritated with him saying, like, bringing this out as a
no, they haven't been deeply irritated, but I think the reaction I've seen is that most people see the opening as like, oh wow, that is unequivocally bad. What has happened? Yeah. And by the way, I am mostly of that point of view. Like, I'm mostly of that point of view. So, so the idea that you could even think that it's not horrible is shocking, I think, to some people.
Well, I think the show does. And maybe Vince is just seeing that. I think the show like really tilts your emotions in the favor of thinking this is horrifying, given the fact that it's a non-consensual like mass transformation of the entire planet, as opposed to, had aliens come to Earth and be like, hey, so you've existed this way forever. There is another way. We're not going to force anybody to do it, but like, do you want to become part of the joined and like start a different way of life? It could be compelling, and then people could sign up. Like, I don't think I would do that, but at least it would, it would be an option. And so I think the non-consensual nature is, I think, what puts so many people off even considering the worldview that it could actually be nice inside of there. And then also, given, and this is why I asked whether there was discourse, because it's not easy for me to imagine like people being mad at Gilligan. Like, okay, so you could have set this scene anywhere, but then you set it in a specific culture that is ripe for interpretation the way that Jesse did, where it's like, hey, this seems like we're using a sci-fi high concept premise to sort of talk about colonization and other such topics. And then Vince is out here like, I don't know, like maybe it's kind of good though. Like, you don't know. Have you tried being have you tried having your culture wiped out and becoming part of the greater good? Like, I don't know, it could be kind of all right. Like America, like I'm not, but I'm saying that's where my mind originally went, was like, oh man, should Vince have just been quiet?
It's nothing like that. It's nothing
all
like
right,
that.
All right.
But it's just kind of like him saying, decide for yourself, when most people are like, I don't know, it seems pretty unequivocal to me. I would say that the way the scene unfolds and is shot and edited, it does seem like the show is trying to amplify the erasure of humanity, right?
Yes. Yes.
Everyone stopping the singing, and the goat not having a connection with the girl anymore, and like all these things, her not even needing to be in the house anymore. All these aspects that we consider essential to the human experience being gone and highlighted in that way, does feel like the scene is taking a position. But I think it's worth noting that Gilligan is like, hey, the perfect reaction to the show could go either way. So anyway. All right, let's talk about a couple other topics that have come up in the wake of the episode airing and people's reaction to it. Some people were wondering, right? Carol forces Zosia to say I instead of we. We this. Instead, she says I, and then she asks Zosia about her memory, like what's your favorite food, or that kind of thing. And Zosia seems to be reminiscing as an individual, and some people were speculating, hey, is that supposed to indicate that by asking her for a specific memory, maybe she's causing Zosia to separate from the hive a little bit? Well, the actor who played Zosia, Carolina Wydra, by the way, amazing story about her involvement with the show. I don't know if you've seen, but she had
Bryan Cranston pulled her name out of a hat, basically.
Right. Well, they remembered working together on the show Sneaky Pete.
Yeah.
But she had kind of, as far as I could tell, like not really been working that much, and wasn't really super focused on acting until this opportunity came up. And they had the people from Pluribus searched the world over to find Zosia. Like they really were like trying to find this person, and they managed to remember her from a movie, or the show Sneaky Pete as well, and kind of be like, hey, offer her this role. Okay, anyway. The actor who plays Zosia, Carolina Wydra, said, I'm reading here from, I think, Sepinwall's piece, when Zosia seems to be acting more like an individual with Carol, Wydra wonders, is Zosia actually moving herself a little from the collective, or is she performing for Carol to make her happy? That is something that I would want the audience to have their own opinions on, end quote. So I guess I think it's just worth highlighting that the actor herself is saying, I am deliberately trying to play it so that it is open to interpretation. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there.
What do you
Patrick,
think,
I don't know if you had any reaction to that scene specifically about Zosia having that memory of what it was like to be Zosia.
I mean, yeah, my interpretation, again, in the unreasonable anti-hive position that I have taken on this podcast, is that she's just rooting around in the memories. Like that. That's just scanning a database.
Interesting. So there's nothing. So there's none of real Zosia coming up. It's just the hive doing its thing.
Well, look, if you want to take the position on, like, I have seen some speculation. I'm sure we're going to get into this, and if I'm getting ahead of myself, you can stop me. That what is Manusos actually was on the verge of pulling somebody out of the joining,
right?
Like when he was doing his little you're in there, using the signal. Like I think those are all going to be keys to unlocking people and bringing them back. And there's a world where two things are true. I think she is scanning a database and just performing, but that there's sort of,
right.
We'll see how scientific they get, but there's sort of a process of bringing somebody home. You need come find the host bot, come back. This is you. And there's a way that a quote, you can find your way back to the body. And that requires, remembering certain things, in order for that rejoining of the self to happen. So I think two things can be true, and then it just makes me wonder on how much of the actual mechanics of all that have they figured out, and how much is that what they're doing in a mysterious writer's room for season 2?
Yeah, you are. I think you subliminally absorbed this email we got from Nick R., who wrote into decodingtv@gmail.com saying, I think Manousos was on the right track in disrupting the signal and trying to pull the individual out of the hive, but he was missing one key thing, a strong, specific memory of love and happiness from that individual's past. And Carol may have learned someone's favorite ice cream and the memory attached to it. I also think Carol's cul-de-sac will end up being the staging ground for the resistance. We spend the entire season with her isolated among the remaining houses, and by the end, we have another house filled. Will we see each house filled with a new person working to make the world right as the show progresses? Question mark. Maybe so, Nick R. Maybe so, Nick R. Thank you for that email to decodingtv@gmail.com. That seems very plausible to me, especially because, as people may know, they built that whole cul-de-sac as an actual set. That's not a real place. They built it all for the show. So
is that just did anyone ask Vince, is that just a lesson learned from the tortured history of that house from Breaking Bad that had turned into a cultural mark?
Right.
Because
Patrick
people
is referring to the fact that the house that Walter White threw a pizza onto in Breaking Bad, it has actually become a living hell for anyone living in that house, because people
around it, if you're in the neighborhood as well.
People will like invade the property, take photos, do all kinds of stuff they're not supposed to do. And it has become a hellish existence for the people in that house. So yeah, now they don't need to do that because none of these houses exist in the real world. Okay. The first season of Pluribus concludes with the reveal that Carol has obtained an atomic weapon. And according to the director of the finale, and this is actually, like, I think really interesting to me. He said, quote, they said, quote, we had a much subtler ending. It was like a secret handshake between them, like her way of saying, I'm with you. But executives at Sony and Apple TV had a suggestion for Vince Gilligan. Maybe subtle isn't the way to go at the end of the first season of such an ambitious, high-concept, globe-trotting sci-fi drama. So Team Pluribus dropped an atomic bomb on Carol's driveway. Literally. It was a great note, acknowledges Gilligan, and it wasn't a cheat because the writers realized that Carol had already asked the others if they would give her an atom bomb if she asked for one, end quote. So that's from Alan Sepinwall's feature about Pluribus at theringer.com. And I just thought that was really interesting that they originally had it very subtle of like, hey, we're teaming up. And then Apple being like, I don't think this is... this feels too subtle. By the way, I just think that's notable because Apple in general, I would say, is fairly subtle in many respects.
As a company,
like,
yeah. Sure.
Their design is not... It's beautiful, but it's not meant to be showy. It's not meant to be shocking or flashy. But it's funny to imagine Apple executives being like, guys, this is too subtle. We spent $200 million on the show, and just having her kind of give a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge to Manousos is not going to cut it. Patrick, any reaction to this?
Well, it's made me curious, given the two season nature of the show in terms of Apple ordering 2 seasons up front. How much of the improvisational storytelling that really defined a lot of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, which is, hey, if someone has a better idea in the room, even though we've been plotting toward this other thing forever, go with that. Like famously, Gilligan has talked about the opening scene of the final season of Breaking Bad, which I won't spoil, in which something very dramatic happens with the discovery of a gun in a car. They didn't know what that meant at the start of the season.
So let's just be clear. They introduced the idea of Walter White has an M60 machine gun, and it's a flash forward. And it's like, but they didn't know how they were going to connect present day events to the M60 weapon. And famously, they had to like improvise their way to get to that point and figure it out. Now, and so you're saying, sorry, Patrick, why don't you finish making your point?
My point was, given this is a sci-fi show, like, would they follow the same route, which is Gilligan's always talked about. It's one of my favorite things about him, even though it makes every season feel like a risky act, is they write the coolest possible thing or most interesting possible thing, and they'll worry about, I'm sure they talk about implications, but that's the challenge for future themselves, is what to do with that. And so I think it's interesting that we spent some time talking about like the atom bomb. You and I didn't really like it that much as a final note on the season, or at least at best we're mixed. And it's interesting / maybe kind of frustrating to find out that that final little bit was just the result of a studio note of like go bigger, as opposed to we've really thought through like, is it something about like the atom bombs, like waves will like disrupt the signal. It's like, no, like they thought it was cool that there was an atom bomb, which is cool. But in the bigger picture, it speaks to, again, something I love about this creative team, which is they love to back themselves into a corner because they know they can find a way out. And that's just really exciting as a watcher of the show.
Well, in this interview, I mean, I think what becomes clear in these interviews is that in general, they have thought this through a lot better than they have literally any other shows that they've worked with.
Yeah.
So,
well, he called the Walter White and the gun kind of a mistake, because that one they felt they had to bend the story in way, like he's like, they're happy with where they got there, but they didn't feel like it was their best work. But that's the nature of doing improvisational as opposed to plotting A to B.
One of the things that I thought was most interesting from the Sepinwall piece was the idea that the writers watched Michael McKean's performance in Better Call Saul, and then realized, wait a second, this pompous man would never want his con man brother to be a lawyer, end quote. And that's how they shaped the character, was by watching the performance. And that is improvisational, right? Whereas in this show, it feels much more planned out. And so they've reacted to this idea of the improvisational. First of all, Gordon Smith is the person who directed the episode. And Alison Tatlock is I believe the writer of the episode. Gordon Smith also was a co-writer of the episode. Anyway, Alison Tatlock says, it really felt like a exciting big swing statement for Carol to plant a flag at the end of the season, but that did not mean in any way that we had a specific plan. Now, future us is present us. We're having to figure it out now, end quote. So she's saying we don't have a specific plan for the atom bomb. But Gilligan says, quote, I'm not as worried about paying off the atom bomb as I was the M60. For that matter, he says, at this point in the process, we have more thoughts about the end game of the series than we ever did on Breaking Bad. We did have some ideas back then, but we jettisoned them all for better ideas, and we would do that here if a better idea came to us, end quote. So he is implying we kind of already know how the show's going to end. We're not like doing the whole improvisational thing as before. Certainly not as much as before, although they're still kind of generating ideas and stuff. So they are less improvisational for Pluribus than they were for Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. But that is also a double-edged sword. Reading here from the article, when you ask Vince Gilligan how long it might be until we see a second season and find out why Carol wants an atom bomb in her driveway, Vince Gilligan says, longer than I would care for it to be, he replies with a deep sigh, because the show takes a lot of time to get as precisely calibrated as his other shows, if not more, considering the scope of things. It's going to be a while, Vince Gilligan says. It's going to be a while. So I think we had originally said probably we're not going to see another season until 2027, right? Like that's the most likely thing. And because they haven't even started filming the next season yet, right? So
there was people like people scrape together like bookings of productions and things like that, and there was a hope. This is where this rumor of they're going to shoot in the spring, and that gives you a thought that maybe it could come out around the same time at the end of 2027. I think he was asked specifically about that in one interview. He's like, no, I wish that was true. And so I think we are looking at, unfortunately, a Severance, maybe not as bad as Severance season 2, because there was the writer's strike and a lot of other complicating factors. But I think we are looking at a 3-year wait for the next season of Pluribus, which is, it's dispiriting.
3-year wait? No. I mean, season 1 premiered in 2025. Season 2 is probably going to be 2027. Probably. Okay. Right.
I'm thinking it's late 20. I'm thinking it's December 20. I mean, which might as well be 3 years, even if the math is
could be. It could be late 2027. But yeah, you're right.
I'm worried. I'm worried that the fact that he can't say anything more, and he seems like he's a pretty straight shooter. He would say, we're pretty confident we're going to start next summer. I think he would have said that. And the fact that he hasn't makes me, can we shoot 2 seasons back to back? I'd rather wait 4 years and have 2 seasons in the can than wait 2 years and then another 2 years, but maybe that's just me.
Well, you may have seen Stephen King post on X about this. He said, Vince Gilligan says he's in no hurry to get going on season 2 of
I
Pluribus.
saw this.
Understood, but hey, Vince, if you're listening, I'm not getting any younger. End quote. Stephen King, that's Stephen King, who, by the way, has produced work that has inspired a massive quantity of pop culture this year, right? Like Welcome to Derry, The Running Man, The Long Walk, Life of Chuck. Like, just massive cultural footprint. One of the greatest storytellers of our age saying, Vince Gilligan, please make this show faster because I might die before season 2 comes out.
He almost did once, and then he ruined his own book series because of it.
Wait, what are you referring to?
Stephen King, Dark Tower, which despite the second half being pretty actively bad, is my favorite book series of all time. He was writing the 7 tomes of that slowly over time. And then King has his infamous car accident where he almost dies and then worries that he'll never finish the books. And so he hurriedly finished the rest of that series as a result. And let me tell you, as every other Dark Tower fan could tell you, you could tell that he was just rushing to finish it. So I make the joke because he understands, like, in his own he should remind himself, like, Steven, last time this came up and you rushed a book series to its conclusion, what happened? We made it bad. So just makes me laugh.
All right, so those are a few of the insights we got from Gilligan and team for the from the interviews they gave. I do think it's a little interesting that they're giving interviews as teams. You know what I'm saying? Like, I often see Gilligan with Ray Seahorn, or Gilligan with Ray Seahorn and Carolina Wydra, or Gilligan with Alison Tatlock and Gordon Smith. You know, like it's rarely just Gilligan, which I am curious, like, to what degree that is deliberate, or if that's just the way it worked out, or like if Gilligan is trying to, like, put the rest of the team out there in a way that gives them more credit for things. I'm curious about that. But I have noticed, like, often it's just the showrunner. It's just that person out there giving interviews, and this seems much more like a group effort. We did ask for your reactions and theories about things, and I've already mentioned some of them. We had, like, people like Daniel S. writing in and Nick R. writing to us about to decodingtv@gmail.com about, like, Carol asking Zosia to recall a specific memory. Does that do something specific? Like, does that disrupt the signal? Maybe that can help them. You know, like, a lot of people had that. We already discussed that, but I just wanted to give those people a shout out. Thank you for writing in about that. Over at decodingtv.com, we had a comment from Danny, who wrote in. This is a couple weeks ago, actually. This wasn't for the finale, but I still think it's worth highlighting. I wonder if the hive starving to death is supposed to be a metaphor for AI using up all the electricity. It's using up all the resources and incapable of doing anything to create more, end quote. I thought your insights on this were really great, Patrick, about, like, is the hive, like, the hive is, like, thirsting for more information because they can't, they seem to lack the ability to create new artistic works.
Yeah.
We don't know that because no one has deliberately asked them.
I hope that that's one of my desperate wishes that can manifest into season 2 of Pluribus. Like, if you, like, asked, like, an artist to make another work, what would that work be? Like, I'd be fascinated to know with the show and how it interprets the deliberate asking of creation of art, and, like, what would happen? What would the process be?
Yeah. John Halsky wrote into decodingtv.com, and I thought this is very interesting. He said, quote, I think it's not an invasion at all. I think it's an ant trap. It may have been this podcast or another, but I heard someone compare the original hive signal from space to those ant traps that involve a sugary treat that one ant takes back to the colony in order for everyone to kill everyone from the inside out. I think that's actually what's happening here. If I'm right, here's how it might work and the case for it. At some point, somewhere out there, some advanced civilization, or even just one individual in that alien society, concluded that an unchecked species that overgrew its environment could pose a risk to the universe. They devised this solution. Any civilization advanced enough to receive, decode, and implement the signal would enter a state of paralyzing bliss and starve itself to death. It is, from a certain POV, a humane solution. It leaves the planet better than the signal found it, and if done correctly, it completely neutralizes all resistance. What else makes sense? That the signal wants to propagate itself just to die a slow, painful death? What intelligent species operates on that basis? And if the signal is just a prelude to some alien species arriving and clearing us out, why would the hive tell Carol that they'll never know anything about the planet that sent the signal? This theory makes the most sense to me and provides a highly satisfying punchline. Any species out there stupid enough to create the alien RNA without knowing what it does first deserves to die.
That's up
What do you
to
think,
me.
Patrick?
I think that's plausible. Like that's like a very cynical interpretation of a higher being just saying, "Hey, F it." Like, if you open Pandora's box, you weren't smart enough to not open in Pandora's box. That makes sense to me. It just becomes an open question on whether we ever hear that articulated in the show. But as a operating theory, I think that adds up, or at least it's certainly within the realm of possibility.
Are you familiar with the Fermi paradox and
Yeah.
theories around it? Right. So you'll know what I'm about to say then. But the Fermi paradox is the idea of, hey, there are literally more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on Earth. Right. Like more than that. Like not even just, it's some order of magnitude more stars than there are grains of sand on Earth. So with those billions upon billions of stars, it's implausible that there is, like, how is it possible that there's not any other life that we know about? Like, we have not seen any example of any other life that we know about. Like, why does that make any sense? Anyway, there's many theories as to why the Fermi paradox is the way it is. And one of the theories is the dark forest theory, which is many, if you search up dark forest theory, you'll find a lot of videos about this and stuff. But the idea is that the dark forest theory is like the universe is like a dark forest and a quiet forest. Why is it? Why do we not see or hear any signs of life? Because anyone that pokes their head out gets sniped. like if you're like, hey, is anyone around? Like literally, some advanced civilization comes in and just kills their ass, like exterminates them, takes over their planet, like does whatever. So anyway, it makes me think about the dark forest theory, like this idea of it's not exact. This idea of the signal being an ant trap is not exactly the dark forest theory, but like it's this idea of any sufficiently advanced civilization either has already been killed or knows to shut the fuck up so that they don't attract any attention, right? Anyway, stuff to think about.
Because I guess presumably in an operating version of this theory, the aliens on the other planet who sent the signal, if that's what happened, they're not exactly checking up on Earth. They're like, it'll take care of itself. Like,
right.
We send it to places that we have some sort of technology that lets us to do like deep space, scanning. This planet seems like could be hospitable for life. And so we'll just shoot the signal at it. And if it's there, well, it won't be there anymore. But we're not doing it on like a follow-up probe to figure it out. So either you survive it, like, which maybe happens at Pluribus, and like learn from it and become one of the few civilizations to like dodge the bullet, or more likely, it all ends up poorly.
Also related to the Fermi paradox is this idea of the great filter, right? I don't know if you're familiar with that concept, but the idea is that why is there not more intelligent life out there? Well, there's this concept called the great filter, which is this idea that at some point along an advanced civilization's development, something happens that prevents them from developing further, right? And maybe it's any sufficiently advanced civilization will eliminate itself via nuclear war, or there's some biological thing where like once the planet gets beyond 12 billion humans, it will collapse on itself. Like something. It's not a specific thing, but it's like maybe at some point in a creature's development or a civilization's development, like something filters out anyone from continuing further. Even if you accept the great filter, there is no necessarily knowledge of where we are. Like, is the great filter behind us? Maybe the great filter is ahead of us, and we are going to encounter something that annihilates us. So, like, it's possible. Anyway, or maybe the signal is the great filter, right? Maybe, right? Like, that's what the great filter. Maybe the signal solves the Fermi paradox, which is any sufficiently advanced civilization decodes this, feeds it to their people, and then everyone dies. Like maybe that's what it is.
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah. Okay.
It's the sound that makes it the last human.
Yeah, that's the last
dies
thing.
of the...
All right. Odyssey Dave writes into decodingtv@gmail.com. Odyssey Dave, by the way, we've read one of his emails. Very intelligent observer of television. Some issues I've been pondering since the season 1 finale. What are the limits of the Join's non-violence? They say they have a biological imperative and knowingly or at least recklessly killed almost 1 billion people by accelerating the joining when it was threatened by the U.S. military. How many steps removed will a threat have to be before they take action? And what action can they take? I imagine we'll see this come to a head when Carol and Manusos's actions directly interfere with their biological imperative to spread the signal with a satellite array and or unjoin one or more of them, end quote. Let's just talk a little bit about this portion of the email for a second, right? The idea is like the joined or the hive can't do anything to like physically, they're not going to physically stop you. They're not going to physically impede you. And in fact, they will give you weapons and things that will kill. But at some point, like, what do we think they're capable of when it comes to stopping Carol Manussos? This is, by the way, related to another theory that we got about they're building this gigantic antenna to beam the signal back into space. Some people have speculated that Carol and Manussos will use that antenna to disrupt the joining in some way. I think that's very plausible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
very possibly a plot point. No, at the rate the show is going, probably a season 3 plot point.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to imagine. Like, I thought maybe this season we'd get to the end and convert one person. Right.
Yeah.
And we talked about, like, you know, what if Zosha woke up, you know, like screaming, and that's like the cut to black. Now it seems much more likely that is a season 2 finale. And then from there, they're going to the satellite. Like, what's the new clock you're against, right? Like, the clock in season 2 is going to be, at least in the beginning, them coming for Carol and converting her. Then I think they're working on pulling people out. And then it's like, right, we could also, you can imagine a conversation at the end of season 2. It's like, we could use the satellite array against them.
Yes.
Cut to black.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's like, already got there 3 years ago, Vince.
Yep.
But yeah, what are the limits of the Join's nonviolence? I think whatever they are, they're going to be tested, right? I mean, what I could imagine is the Joined doing stuff that's like does not harm Carol, but could physically stop her. You can imagine, I'm going to guess at some point in season 2, there's going to be, or season 3, I'm going to guess at some point in season 2 or season 3, there's going to be something where like the Joined build this massive human wall or a human block of people that like prevents Carol from getting to the antenna or doing something with the antenna or doing something that's going to harm them in some way.
Right, or and she would have to harm them in a way that would feel very, like, let's say she's approaching the satellite or something like that. It's like, you're going to have to kill thousands of us. They
put all of Carol's fans, all of the Waikaro fans.
Wow,
right?
That might get her. She might take the gun out and start going. I think that is actually a very plausible motivator. But I think it's creative. Like, I don't think they're gonna like put her in a prison or like there are probably creative ways they could. The legalese, as I think Gilligan has put it, in terms of how they could find ways to restrict her without necessarily stopping her. But I think it's much more plausible, something like what you're getting at, which is forcing her to engage in an act of harm against other people in order to accomplish her goal. And like a very like World War Z like mountain of people might be
zombie tornado.
Manussos, he's got a bazooka. Like, actually, there'll be like a close-up shot of Ray Seahorn's face, like a tear as she's like contemplating whether she should take out this gun. And then like, is that Manussos' music? And like, dun 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 dun, and then like just an RPG just blasts through it. Thousands of people are splattered apart as he ruthlessly makes his way to the satellite. It feels very very plausible.
Odyssey Dave continues, this may be where Chekhov's A-bomb comes in to destroy the satellite array. That, or it's a failsafe for Carol to detonate if they come to join her against her will, end quote. I think those are both really plausible. Atomic weapons have EMPs, like that could be a thing that disrupts the signal. Or it's, like if it's like, hey, one day the hive is going to come for me. When that day comes, press this button You know, we're all going up in a mushroom cloud. All right. Odyssey Dave continues, I find Carol's lack of curiosity, especially as a writer, frustrating. Even if I were angry and plotting against them to set the world right, I would still ask the Hive things like, who killed JFK, Jimmy Hoffa, and all the other conspiracies and mysterious deaths? Have aliens visited us, or is there proof of aliens on Earth from before the joining, and can I see it? What was in Area 51? And show it to me. Can a person choose to unjoin? Can they make the part of George R.R. Martin within the joined finish A Song of Ice and Fire? If not, why not? Which leads me to David and Patrick. If you were unjoined, what would you want to know from the joined? End quote.
Oh.
Now I'm just gonna put this out there. I think the JFK thing is a really big one. Like that is an assassination where people have concluded that there is a significant possibility that a conspiracy took place. Like if you examine the details of the JFK assassination, it feels very implausible that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Just putting that out there. And so I would love to know what the details of that were. And presumably somebody in the Hive would know, right? So that would be number one on my list, is like, who killed JFK? That's a big one.
If I was being specific, yes, I would ask about the aliens, but I have a feeling that the answer would be there is no evidence of aliens, and that would snuff out that adventure really quick. So instead, I think it would be get a list of like the 100 greatest conspiracies, and like let's just go through them. Like let's just like knock some of these out. Like at least some of these have got to be true, or they got a fun story behind them. And I think that would be. I would use that as a conversation starter. Like, let's just start. We got a conspiracy YouTube video, top 15 conspiracies of all time. Like, come on, join. Like, let's go through these and let me know which one of these have got something going on. I think that would be a very fun use of time. The other one I wonder is just because everyone is. This would require. I don't know that I would have the motivation to do this, but like in theory, you have every expert that ever was, right? Like. At the time of the joining available to you. And so anything you ever wanted to learn how to do, like in theory, you would have the world's greatest professor that could speak your language because the knowledge is not language restricted. Like, so if you wanted to climb a mountain or like, I don't know, anything you can think of, in theory, you could, be taught how to do it by an expert. And like that sounds very exciting, except like I think in the world where the world is over, I'm not sure I'd have the motivation to care.
Wikipedia does have a list of conspiracy theories.
Hell yes.
Yeah, I would want to go through a lot of these. I would have questions about Area 51 as well. Is that a thing? Are UFOs actually a thing, or is it something that our government made up so that we could get more defense funding? So those would definitely be high on the list. What else would be on here that I would really want to know about? I would say, I'd want to know who killed Jeffrey Epstein, if anyone. Gonna put that out there.
So wait, so in the database they can access, is it just like, is it a form of truth serum? Can I know someone's true feeling? Like,
yes.
So then I think it'd be interesting if like different figures of history that were active at the moment, like Trump or whatever. It's like,
right.
I got questions, man. Like, what's up? Do you feel empathy? I'm sure the answer is probably no. But you know what I mean? Stuff like that, where
what is the deal with Trump's ear after that assassination attempt? Like I have so many questions. I have so many questions.
I think it's stuff like that, like current figures of history that I could just get. And this isn't even conspiracy, just like asking questions about like what happened in different rooms and how they actually felt about different things would be I think would be really interesting.
I'm going to put this out there as well. Okay. There are so many times, especially in our industry, Patrick, right? Where there's so many times when a piece of art / media just never happens. Right. Like so-and-so was going to make a movie and then it never got made. Why? What happened? We never hear the story in the public, right?
Yeah.
We never hear the story in the public. And so I'd want to know what the deal was. Like, remember that game that like, it was very famous. Like, I think Jason Schreier broke the story of that game that got canceled at Microsoft that everyone loved, that was made by that Phil Spencer couldn't stop playing it. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
oh yeah, there was a Bethesda game that got canceled. It was an online. There's a lot of stories like that of games that lost to time. I would ask, I just bring the whole conversation full circle. Look, man, like Stephen King, I know that The Dark Tower didn't work out on the first draft, but like,
right.
give it another shot. LLM Stephen King might be able to produce a second version of The Dark Tower that I was more satisfied with, and I would like to read it. Actually, like, let's give it another shot. Can I just task Stephen King, LLM Stephen King, with doing The Dark Tower a second time? What do I get as a result?
Yeah. On that note, what is going on with George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire? Even if you can't get him to write it,
right? Give me a real explanation. Like, bro.
Just like in your heart of hearts, George R. R. Martin, what is going on? Like, is it that it became too overwhelming for you? Is it that your standards were too high? Did you just lose interest in it? Like, what is going on there? What is going on there?
That's a really good one.
There are all kinds of other movies that were like never made. Terry Gilliam's Watchmen, James Cameron's Spider-Man, Kubrick's Napoleon movie, like all these movies where it's like, what was the deal there? At one point, Neil Blomkamp was going to work on Aliens. I don't know if you remember.
Alien like 5. Yeah. George Miller was weeks away from shooting a Justice League movie.
Right. Like all these, all these movies that what was the next Mad Max movie that George Miller would have made? I want to read the script for the canceled The Hunt for Ben Solo movie that never is gonna happen, right?
So give me the script. Yeah, look, we would fill the time. We'd do a great podcast that no one else would be listening to. But we'd be recording it.
No, they would listen. The Hive would listen to it.
I guess they would, because it would be new. It would be new information.
Literally,
that's right.
Everyone on Earth would be listening to it, Patrick. In
wow,
a way,
wow! This week's episode brought to you by.
So yes, what would we ask? All the conspiracy theories, like, are they true or not? What's going on there? At Wikipedia, and then like, what happened with all the stuff that we wanted to get made that didn't get made? That's what I would want to know. Those are the questions we'd ask. And then maybe like, how did so and so feel about me? At the time, I would pull a Carol and be like, did so and so like the thing that I made, or like, I don't know if I would do that. I wouldn't say. I
want to say I wouldn't do that, but I feel like I'd be drunk like Carol at least a couple of times, and you'd get in your feelings, and it'd be too tempting.
Because every unanswered question about another human, that you've ever had, theoretically you could get an answer, right? And so it's like, surely there are some unanswered questions of like unresolved, unclosed tabs in your relationship or friendship history that you'd want to be like, what was the deal there? Lots to think about. Okay. Final part of Odyssey Dave's email, which, by the way, very rich text here. If Pluribus is about what it means to be human and posits that part of being human means we have to take the ups with the downs, individually and societally, then they will have to explore the malevolent side of humanity for it to be a meaningful exploration to me. As curmudgeonly, abrasive, and domineering as Carol, Manussos, and Lakshmi respectively may be, they and all of the other unjoined all seem like decent people ultimately. There isn't a narcissistic sociopath among them. Just imagine if a Jeffrey Dahmer or Epstein had survived as one of the unjoined, and what the joined would do to make him happy. This would also test whether reasonably foreseeable harm is inside or outside the bounds of their doctrine of nonviolence. The show is really sidestepping a lot of issues by having Diabate be so nice. To explore the true cost of returning to our status quo, I would need Pluribus to show what it means to accept inhumanity as part of our humanity. Maybe they could explore this by having Carol and Manussos being able to unjoin only one person at a time, and one of the people they unjoin is a threat. Thanks for the podcast. Looking forward to season 2, end quote. Patrick, any thoughts about inhumanity and the show needing to confront inhumanity? I don't know that. Like, I think a Dahmer is like a really extreme case, and I don't know that it makes sense that like, oh, we need to have that exploration. I think that the show seems to me far more interested in extreme differences within the bounds of normal acceptable human behavior, right? And that is ultimately one of the things that is most compelling. I saw like someone post on Threads or Blue Sky about this. I don't remember which one, but basically like, it's kind of a funny thing that there's only 13 or 12 or 13 people on Earth, and 2 of them need to work together on something, and they cannot get along at all. right? Like that basically like this kind of incompatibility and friction exists no matter what permutation of humanity you have. And I think the show is trying to explore that with like there's already a rich vein of exploration in the Manusos Carol dynamic. Like we've only grazed that exploration so far. And so I think that is really interesting and applicable and universal in a way that like what if one of the unjoined is a Dahmer? I do think it's possible that like they'll unjoin somebody who's evil at some point. Like that seems possible to me. But like
it seems too delicious to avoid the
Right.
scenario in which they maybe not evil, but like
not evil, right?
but
like
you
are
unjoin
opposed to them in
someone,
some way,
right?
yeah.
Right, and it's like will the others who don't want you to? They're very upset that you're unjoining people, but would they accept them back? You know what I mean? It's like take this one back. I actually like. I feel like there's a very plausible scenario where they unjoin someone and actually like this is no, like you need to go back to the hive. Like would you and they try and deliver them back to the hive and rejoin them? But I wonder if the body could take. That's the thing. Like the actual joining process is physically traumatic. I assume that the unjoining is also traumatic. It's almost like a seizure. I wonder how many times the human body could even take such a process before cracking.
Yeah. All right, Patrick. That is the end of the emails and points. Do we have anything else to say about the show? You know, I guess as the show has marinated with you, like, is there anything else you have to say about any other reflections? I will say that the one thing I have been fairly annoyed by is people saying things like, "Oh, you don't like the pacing of the show." Well, that's just because your brain is all fried on TikTok and you have no attention span anymore, right? And on the one hand, yes, certainly there's part of that that's true. But on the other hand, I did find season 1 to be extremely well made, extremely thought provoking, a net positive in your and my life to talk about it and gather with listeners to reflect on the show. Like, I'm grateful that we got to have this experience together, right? Like, overall, those are my overall thoughts. And also, I found the pace to be frustrating because on the one hand, Carol spends so much time just learning stuff that we as the audience already know. Like it's until like episode 4 when she's like caught up, like about half the season when she's like caught up to kind of where we are in the show. And it just felt like we're burning a lot of time on that front. And then also I found that I don't think, you made some really good points, Patrick, about Carol's arc being overall like a pretty good one in season 1 of the show. But in terms of like the entire story with the introduction of Manussos and all these other people and the hive and we're trying to stop the joining and so on, and we have a limited amount of time. I don't know that I found season 1 to be a satisfying story. Like, I don't know that I got to the end of season 1 and was like, wow, what a complete, satisfying story. And if there was no more, I would feel completely fine with that. Like, I don't think I feel that way. I think I feel like, as I indicated, we got about halfway through one season's worth of story, and I won't feel like this story or this part of the story is complete until probably at least season 2. I'm not saying you can't leave any stone unturned or any like unresolved plot lines or anything like that. Like I know what it's like when a show ends and there's still unresolved stuff. Like that's very normal, but it just feels like so little advanced in this season. And ultimately that's why I'm frustrated with the pacing. Not because there's episodes where like we're methodically seeing how Manussos scans radio frequencies. That's fine. It's just more like the overall arc of the season. Okay. I've tried to make my argument. That's mine. Patrick Klepek, you have more positive thoughts, so I thought you could have the last word on this.
Well, I guess what I'd say is, as frustrated as I am with the likely distance between a season 1 and a season 2, I find that more frustrating in a show that is entirely or more heavily dependent on plot revelations,
yes,
than character development. And yes, Pluribus is a high concept sci-fi show, but one that is rooted in character first, plot world building second. They work in tandem, but the show is primarily interested in the journey of Carol up against this high concept sci-fi premise. And there are interesting things that are happening alongside that, but it is primarily interested in Carol's journey that just happens to take place in this high concept premise. Whereas a show like Severance, whose characters I like, but I think it is tilted in the opposite direction, in which like you're desperately wondering like, what is going on with this place? What is behind this door? Like, how does this world operate? And that show also has thrilling characters that I have fallen for alongside its high concept sci-fi premise. But I think that show, if Severance had less interesting characters, it would still be a very compelling show because of the world that it has. If Pluribus like had less interesting characters, it would fucking fall apart because there's just not that much there because it's so weighted heavily on those characters. So I think that's where a lot of the disconnect is with a lot of people's show. I agree with even if the criticisms of the pace didn't bother me as much, I see it. Like it just didn't. It's like I acknowledge, I see that, I do not care. But it's not that I don't understand it, but I do think, especially in as we like these high concept shows, especially in like the era of streaming, I do think this is one that feels a bit of an oddity because it uses the high concept as a justification to do something very slow with really just one character, and that makes it atypical. But I'm with you that I hope the second season, again, it's how we ended that conversation about the finale. It's just impossible to imagine a second season that operates at the same pace, and it almost feels like the show setting itself up to have to operate at a different pace going forward. Yeah. And I think the show has all the ingredients to do all the stuff that was really good in the first season, ratchet up the stakes and the pacing in a way that could be something that I think satisfies everybody in a really compelling second season.
I think Severance is a great counterpoint because I don't recall, maybe I was a big jerk about this before, but I don't recall complaining about the pacing of Severance. Like, I feel like
no, Severance the opposite. We, especially in season 2, we both made the point that we feel like we've burned through 3 seasons of ideas, and the show's like, hey, like this is really cool. What if we did this? And it's like, yeah, I'm done with that. On to the next one, which is a complete opposite.
And by the way, both seasons of television that minor spoiler for Severance season 2, but both seasons that ended with huge cliffhangers. Yeah. I'm not like, oh, at the end of that, I feel very unsatisfied. Right? I don't. It's fine for a show that ends with cliffhanger, but like I felt like, oh, we got a season's worth of storytelling in Severance. We got a season's worth of storytelling in season 1 and 2 of Severance, right? Like I did not feel like we got a season's worth of storytelling in Pluribus. Anyway, this will be the last I complain about this for 2.5 years, folks. So, but I, despite the fact that overall brilliant show, loved it, many great things about it. I'm going to be thinking about it a lot. I also feel like, man, it was slow. And I don't think it's just because my brain has been fried from Instagram reels, Okay. I do just want to say thank you again for listening to this podcast, engaging with us. We hope you, if you're watching this on YouTube, that you subscribe to the YouTube channel and also subscribe to the podcast, Decoding TV, wherever you get your podcast. We're going to be beginning our coverage of The Pit soon and other shows throughout the year. So be sure to check it out. But yeah, that's going to do it for us for Pluribus until probably 2027.
Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.